Merry Christmas. I called out, holding a peach cobbler I spent all night baking. The front door creaked open an inch. Then I saw her eyes, cold, calculating, full of the same disdain I'd seen since childhood. Mom looked me up and down, her lip curling. "You always ruin everything," she said flatly. "Don't come in." Then she slammed the door in my face. Through the frosted glass I could hear laughter. My sister Rachel's high-pitched giggle and Aunt Denise's wheezing cackle. Like a well-rehearsed chorus of mean girls who'd aged but never matured. I didn't flinch. I just smiled. Tight. Quiet. The kind of smile that hides a bruise and sharpens a knife. I turned and walked down the steps in my boots, the cobbler still warm in my hands, the snow crunching under me like broken glass. My name is Lauren. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because sometimes betrayal doesn't come in shouts or slaps. Sometimes it comes dressed in tinsel and cranberry sauce, with your own mother guarding the door like a bouncer at the gates of belonging. Have you ever been treated like a stranger in your own family? 10 minutes later I was curled up on my couch, the cobbler untouched. I hadn't even taken off my coat when I heard a knock on my apartment door. Not the casual kind. Urgent. Familiar. I opened it and there was my father. Dad, with snow melting in his graying beard, eyes darting down the hallway like he was being watched. "Can I come in?" He didn't wait for an answer. He stepped inside, closed the door and pulled something from his pocket. A USB drive. He pressed it into my hand. His voice cracked. "You need to see this. I didn't know until today. They planned everything." I stared at him, confused. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Instead he walked out, murmuring just one word over his shoulder. "Sorry." I didn't know it then, but inside that tiny plastic shell was a year's worth of deceit, emails, recordings, bank statements, and the cruelest plan I never saw coming. It turns out I wasn't just excluded from dinner. I was erased from the family, methodically, secretly, deliberately. And I was done playing the quiet one. Because this time I wasn't just walking away. I was walking back with fire in my chest and proof in my pocket. I sat on the floor, knees hugged to my chest, staring at the USB like it might bite me. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the radiator and the ticking clock on the wall. Every second sounded like it was counting down to something, and somehow I knew things would never be the same after tonight. I plugged it in. First just a folder. No label. Just the sterile name, December plan. Inside were dozens of files. PDFs, screenshots, audio clips. The first document I opened made my mouth go dry. It was an email. From my sister Rachel. To Mom. Subject line, "Moving forward without Lauren. We'll tell her it's just a small family gathering, no gifts. That way she won't get suspicious. Once she's out of the picture, we'll finalize the transfer." Transfer? I clicked another file. It was a scanned notarized letter with my dad's name at the bottom. A property deed. The family cabin up in Vermont, the one Grandpa had promised to me before he passed, had already been signed over to Rachel. Behind my back. Another document, a joint account closure. The savings account Mom and I used to share when I was helping her run the antique shop. She'd emptied it. $47,000. Gone. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking as I opened the audio files. Rachel's voice, muffled but clear. "She's never gonna amount to anything. It's not like she'll fight us. Lauren doesn't even have a spine." Then Mom, "She's too emotional. Always was. Let her cry about it alone. It's what she's good at." Aunt Denise laughed. "By New Year's she'll be out of the picture completely." My stomach turned. They didn't just shut me out. They had erased me from my inheritance, my memories, my identity, because they thought I wouldn't fight back. As I never had. But they forgot one thing. I wasn't the same girl anymore. I used to let things go. Keep the peace. Swallow the pain just to be included. But pain has a way of sharpening a woman. And silence? That's just a blade they taught me how to wield. I looked down at the flash drive like it was a detonator. They wanted war? I'd give them something far worse. Reckoning. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat cross-legged on the floor, headphones on, listening to every venom-laced recording. Watching every smug email chain where they traded barbed words about me like I was an obstacle. A ghost they were glad to be rid of. They called me the baggage. Said I was emotionally unstable, financially useless, and too much of a liability to keep around the shop. But what cut the deepest, was hearing my mother say, "If she disappears from the will, no one will notice. She's never done anything worth remembering anyway." I paused the recording, my fingers trembling. That was when the shame started to shift into something electric. Bigger. I pulled out a notebook and wrote down everything. File names, timestamps, account numbers, every time they mentioned money, real estate, or legal documents. And then I noticed something strange. Buried inside a folder named Archive, there was an email from my aunt's law firm. Not addressed to me but about me. Dated 3 months ago. It said, "Per your request, Lauren's name has been removed from all future trust disbursements. Remaining beneficiaries, Rachel West, Denise Fletcher." 3 months ago. That was before my mom even pretended to be too busy to meet me for lunch. Before Rachel called crying about wanting us to be close again. Before Aunt Denise hugged me at church and said, "I'm so proud of the woman you've become." They'd already signed me away. The reconciliation was theater. The hugs, the smiles, the invitations, all staged to keep me blind while they carved my name off our legacy like I was a stain. I closed my laptop slowly. Then I whispered, "Okay. If they wanted a world without me in it, a Lauren they could delete, I'd give them that. But not the way they expected. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't beg. I'd disappear so cleanly it would haunt them. I'd go quiet. But only because I was about to become the loudest thing they'd ever hear. And I knew exactly where to start. Not with Mom. Not with Rachel. With the only one who hadn't said a word on any of those files. My dad. Because silence isn't always complicity. Sometimes it's guilt. And sometimes it's fear. The next morning I stood outside Dad's house. The one he moved into after the divorce, where Mom refused to step foot. He opened the door before I knocked. Like he'd been waiting. We sat at his kitchen table, the silence thick as winter fog. He poured coffee for both of us. No small talk. No Christmas cheer. "I knew about the trust," he said quietly. "But not everything else. Not the cabin. Not the shop money. Why'd you give Rachel the deed?" He stared into his cup. "'Cause your mother asked me to. She said it was what your grandfather wanted." I almost laughed. "He promised it to me. Remember that? I used to read to him on that porch. I sanded the floors with him." He winced. I was trying to keep peace. "You know how your mother is when she wants something." "Yeah," I said, voice cracking. "I do." He looked up finally. "That USB. I didn't mean for you to get hurt." "You handed me a loaded gun, Dad," I said softly. "You knew what was on it." He didn't argue. "I need something from you," I added, sliding the notebook across the table. "I need you to testify, to back up what you know. Help me reclaim what they stole." His jaw clenched. "If I go against your mother, she'll destroy me." I leaned forward. "She already has. You just haven't noticed because she used silence instead of fire." He looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. But then, like a slow shift in the wind, something in his eyes changed. His shoulders straightened. He reached for the notebook and began flipping through it, line by line. His finger stopped at a bank transaction. "She used my signature," he whispered. I didn't blink. "She forged it." He nodded. "I never authorized that withdrawal." And just like that, the first crack appeared in their wall. "I'll help you," he said finally. "But you need to be smart about this. If you want justice, don't go to war, go to court." I smiled. "Oh, I'm not going to court yet. I'm going somewhere better." "Where?" I picked up my coat. "The shop." Because I had something they forgot. Receipts. And the security camera I installed last year without telling anyone? Still running. Still recording. Still watching every secret they thought I was too broken to see. This wasn't just revenge. This was resurrection. The bell over the antique shop door jingled as I stepped inside. It was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that hums with bad memory. The place still smelled like lemon polish and old pine. Same crooked grandfather clock in the corner. Same rust-red rug I'd scrubbed with my bare hands the week Grandma died. Everything looked the same. Except me. Rachel stood behind the counter, counting the cash drawer. Her head snapped up. "Oh. Look who crawled in." Her smile was pure acid. "I'm just here for some paperwork," I said. "Shouldn't take long." "You don't work here anymore," she replied sweetly, folding her arms. "Mom said so." "I didn't come to work," I said, walking past her toward the back office. I came to collect. She scoffed but didn't stop me. Maybe she thought I wouldn't find anything. She forgot this used to be my second home. In the back office, the filing cabinet was exactly where I left it. I pulled the middle drawer, receipts, old ledgers, donation logs, tax records. I took out one folder at a time, scanning for the missing pieces. Anything to prove the shop's finances had been redirected. I found donation forms signed in my name that I never saw. Tax write-offs listing Lauren West as a co-owner, despite Mom telling the bank I'd been let go. Then I turned toward the corner. The tiny black security camera, still blinking red. So live. I pulled out my phone and opened the cloud archive I'd quietly linked it to. The footage was grainy but clear. I skipped through December, watching frames slide by like a film reel. And there was December 5th. Mom and Rachel sitting in the office late at night, pulling cash from the register and stuffing it into a manila envelope. Rachel, she won't notice. Lauren's never even balanced a checkbook. Mom, good. The less she knows, the better. Once she's out, we're selling the place and splitting it. I exhaled. Proof. I downloaded the video and backed it up 5 different ways. Email, cloud, USB, external drive, and one hidden on Dad's laptop. When I walked out of the office, Rachel looked up from her phone. Find what you were looking for? I smiled. Not yet. But I'm getting close. Then I looked her straight in the eye. You should tell Mom to get her hair done. A camera crew's coming soon. She froze. Because the only thing she feared more than a courtroom was a spotlight. By New Year's Eve I had everything. The forged documents. The footage of them stealing. The emails with timestamps. And Dad's signed affidavit, typed neatly and notarized, swearing under penalty of perjury that he never removed me from the trust. I even had a statement from the accountant who quit quietly last summer, the one Mom claimed was unstable. Turns out he wasn't. He just didn't want to be part of a lie. But the piece de resistance? The city permit application Rachel submitted in early December. It showed she'd already started the process to sell the building, the shop that was supposed to be our family's legacy, without my knowledge. Without my signature. Without my name. I stood in front of the courthouse steps in a black wool coat, holding the folder tight to my chest like armor. Behind me, Dad exhaled slowly. You sure about this? I looked at him. My face wasn't afraid anymore. She told me I ruin everything, I said. Let's see how they handle ruin. The court clerk was polite. Efficient. She took my evidence, stamped my motion for injunction, and scheduled the emergency hearing for the following week. But that's not what broke them. What broke them was the letter I mailed that night. A formal notice to the local historical society. See, the shop sat on registered heritage land. I'd done the paperwork 2 years ago after Grandpa died. Quietly. Carefully. On a whim, he said, this place deserves to be remembered. So I made sure it would be. Which meant Rachel couldn't sell it without full beneficiary consent. And Mom couldn't transfer ownership without committing fraud, publicly. I watched the explosion happen in real time. First came the texts. Unread. Then the calls. Declined. Then Aunt Denise showed up at my door, fake tears and all, saying, we never meant to hurt you. I stared at her. You mean you didn't think I'd fight back? She blinked. Lauren, please. We're family. I smiled. No. We're evidence. And I closed the door in her face. The next morning, Rachel's face was on the local news. Family business caught in legal feud. Alleged fraud, forgery, and foul play. There she was, ducking past reporters, clutching her oversized purse like it could shield her from the truth. Mom didn't leave the house for 3 days. The courtroom was still coming. But their world, it was already on fire. And I was just getting warm. The courtroom smelled like wood polish and cold justice. Mom wore navy, like always when she wanted to look innocent. Rachel wore a beige blouse and a twitchy smile that didn't reach her eyes. Aunt Denise wasn't there. Probably realized she couldn't lie under oath without breaking into hives. I sat with my lawyer calm. Because this wasn't revenge anymore. It was reckoning. Judge Brighton glanced over the file, then looked at me. Ms. West, you're alleging that the property and business were wrongfully transferred out of your name? Yes, Your Honor. With forged documents and under fraudulent pretenses. He turned to my mother. Mrs. West, how do you respond? She opened her mouth, but before she could spin her first lie, My lawyer slid the USB across the table. Your Honor, if I may, the footage is time-stamped, shows both defendants accessing funds and discussing the concealment of ownership changes. It corroborates the forged document claim and the statement provided by Mr. Richard West. The judge plugged it in. The courtroom fell silent except for the static click of the video starting. Rachel's voice rang out like nails on glass. She won't notice. Lauren's never even balanced a checkbook. Mom's voice, the less she knows, the better. When the video ended, Mom stared straight ahead, jaw tight. Rachel looked down at her lap, her fingers twisting the edge of her sleeve. Then came Dad's affidavit. Then the permit. Then the tax discrepancies. The web unraveled fast. Rachel tried to interrupt once, stammering, I didn't, it was supposed to be temporary. But the judge raised his hand. I've seen enough. He declared the deed transfer void. He restored my name as co-owner. He opened a fraud investigation and referred the matter to the DA's office for potential criminal charges. But even that wasn't the moment that broke them. That came after. When we exited the courthouse and saw the reporters waiting. One called out, Ms. West. Are you keeping the business? I looked directly at the camera. I'm not just keeping it. I'm restoring it. Rachel stopped walking. Mom froze. Because deep down they knew what that meant. I wasn't just taking the building back. I was rewriting the story. Their story. The one they told everyone, about the ungrateful daughter who never showed up. No. I was the woman who exposed them all. The next headline would carry my name, and only mine. But the final chapter? Still had one move left. 2 weeks later I reopened the shop. The sign above the door read, West and Daughter Antiques, 1963. Reclaimed 2025. People paused when they saw it. Some smiled. Some nodded like they'd known something was wrong all along but never had the words. Inside I kept the same rug. Same grandfather clock. But I moved the register to the front. Visible, transparent. A statement in wood and glass. No more shadows in this place. The morning of the reopening, Dad stood beside me with a coffee in one hand and a trembling lip he tried to hide. She'd be proud, he whispered. He meant Grandma. The real matriarch. The one who taught me that silence is never strength. It's surrender. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. We cut the ribbon together. And just as we did, a black SUV parked across the street. Rachel stepped out looking thinner. Hollowed. The kind of woman who had tasted power and burned her tongue on it. Mom followed behind her, sunglasses on, even though the sky was gray. They didn't come inside. They just stood there, watching the line of customers stretch down the block. Watching their legacy restored by the daughter they tried to erase. The one who always ruined everything. The one they underestimated. I could have walked over. Could have gloated. Could have handed them a mirror and made them look. But instead I picked up the open sign, hung it in the window, and turned my back. Because that's the twist of real revenge. It's not screaming. It's silence. It's not the fire, it's what survives it. That evening I sat behind the register as the sun dipped low. A little girl wandered in with her mom, eyes wide at the shelves of old music boxes and vintage frames. She stopped at a porcelain swan and whispered, "It's so pretty." I smiled. "Everything broken can still be beautiful," I said. And I meant it. As they left, I locked the door behind them, turned off the lights, and stood in the hush of a place reborn. My name isn't missing from the family anymore. It's carved in gold above the door.